So, Jonathan, we're going to start a podcast.
Yes,
Why are we going to do that? Why would anyone do that? Sounds like extra work.
Indeed. However, is it really work if you love doing what you do?
Oh, touche.
Uh-huh.
Oh, monsieur. So we're going to call it Problem Busters. And why are we calling it that?
We live in a world full of problems.
Full stop.
Full stop. And every once in a while, you get a person we love to call a problem buster. And what do they love to do? They love to solve problems. They love to find new ways of dealing with issues and new approaches. And they think outside the box. And they solve problems that you never really thought existed, you know?
Yeah, or problems you didn't think could be solved, right? That's the other big one.
Yes, that is. I think people such as Elon Musk, I think, are fall into that category, right?
Is he on your list to interview, Jonathan?
Yes, that is the ultimate goal. That is the goal. Elon Musk, if you're listening, hopefully you are. We we are eventually going to make our way to interview you. And
and we're going to talk about batteries. Oh, yes.
Oh, lovely batteries. All the applications, cars, houses, factories. Oh, fantastic.
Cities. Yeah,
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the point is that, you know, I read magazines like Positive.news and I look at there's just so much good stuff happening out there. You know, the world's changing a lot. I get that. It's really difficult for a lot of people. I get that. There are a lot of problems. I get that. But there is just this outpouring of human endeavor and ingenuity and effort, you know, and there's so many people doing cool things. So if we can get some of them and talk about the cool things that they are doing to improve the world around them, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. It's all about how, you know, the human existence does not rely on one person. It's all a collective, isn't it? We stand on the shoulders of people that came before us. And, you know, it's pretty much Problem Busters is out to sort of highlight that.
Yeah. And the other big thing for me is that you don't got to be a world leader to make an impact, right? And I really want to highlight some local heroes as well, you know?
Yeah, I mean, from authors to people who have a heavy focus on recycling and things like that. I mean, you know, it's everybody. It's not just the Nobel Prize winners. It's
you still got time, dude. You still got time.
I'm telling you, one day, I wonder if the Problem Busters podcast will get one.
Well, you don't set your sights low. Why would you?
Exactly.
You just wouldn't. Yeah.
No.
So let's talk about some of the problems that we're interested in hearing about solving. So for me, one of the big ones is cars. I just think that we could do better. You know, people driving around in these massive vehicles with combustion engines that are 200 years old in terms of tech.
Yeah.
Could do better, right? So that's something I'd like to talk to people about. I don't own a car anymore. I also don't have kids, so maybe that's the only reason I can get away with it. But it makes me realize that life is better when you can walk around. You know, zipping around in a car is stressful, it's expensive, it's loud. So I want to talk about that with people. Better ways of moving people around cities.
Yeah, and more eco-friendly ways of moving people around cities. Because if you think about it, it's all gone back to fire and combustible engines. So I think cars are really interesting because it's, like you said, it's one of the oldest inventions.
Did you say combustible engines?
Yeah,
I think you did. That's
internal,
brilliant.
Internal combustion engines.
Light it up.
Yeah, light it up. But it's one of the interesting industries, actually, because it's been around for a while, like 100, 200 years, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, there hasn't been much change until recently. So things have gotten a bit more efficient, and things have gotten a bit more. Um, so parts last a bit longer. They're better crafted. So you've got those kind of pieces there. However, when it comes to innovation, there's only a few sort of car brands, wink, wink, Elon Musk, Tesla, and the others that have really tried to push the space. And
Yeah.
I think that is really interesting because once you manage to move large numbers of people in these pods that we call cars, and you have a nice renewable energy source and an infrastructure around it, you then start to clean up the environment um, a lot more, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Then rather than
it does. And
shifting people onto buses, which still use the conventional old engines, but then you would
yeah,
have more buses on the road, and you
or
still
trains. We
yeah.
do trains really, 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 really badly on the south coast of England.
I think in
But
England in general, I think the trains are they're pretty awful. That you can
and it's a
improve that.
management problem, right? It's not a technology problem.
Oh, it's wholly a management. It's a huge management issue. It's also
So let's talk to
slightly
someone about that.
yeah. Well, definitely, because I think there's also pieces of the England and London is old. So there's
Yeah,
only so much renovation you can do when every 50 meters you bump into a listed building, right? So
yeah.
so yeah, so it'll be really interesting to talk to somebody about cars. Um I am really interested in renewable energy. I know it's a cliche, and I know it was renewable energies we got, but there are some really interesting uh, bits of technology. Wave technology is one that's quite interesting, and the yield that
Yeah,
that can give as well, because you're never going to run
yeah,
out of waves. Wind
yeah.
is,
Tidal. Yeah.
yeah, tidal. I think wind is also quite important.
And
Um,
solar, right?
yeah,
Like now that solar panels have gone beyond that critical 25% efficiency mark,
yeah,
I really honestly believe that if we take those two or three things together, that our grandchildren will say, "What? You owned a car and it didn't charge itself as it drove along?"
yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think that's a key one. Um, Nuclear fusion is quite interesting as well. I need to
Okay.
we need to seek somebody uh, about fusion, because we all know
Why the
nu-
heck not?
yeah, because we all know about fission, which is what's currently very bad. How much of an improvement is fusion? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I can't say I know much about it, but I'm
Yeah,
interested.
yeah.
And I want to learn about what we do with all of these things that we've thrown away, because away is just around the
Oh,
corner, right?
yes,
That's the kicker. And I want to learn about algae that can eat plastic.
yes,
And just, we're going to have to.
yeah.
We can't just keep digging holes and putting it in or putting it on a boat to the Philippines.
That's true. I want to know about algae that can. I think there's an algae that creates oxygen.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
So I wonder if at some point we just lay large masses of water with this algae to kind of tip the balance again, if that's possible. That would be quite
Wow.
interesting.
That's
Yeah.
super interesting. I want to
Yeah.
hear about graphene as well. You've probably heard that
Oh.
we grow a bit of graphene, we put it across a pipe, we make it a gravity feed, and that is a desalination plant because only H2O can get through the graphene filter. How could that
Ah.
change the world in, say,
That
Africa or dry parts of Australia?
That's true. That's true. I think graphene's an interesting one too, because you can batteries.
Is that
Solid
right?
state, yeah, I think it's solid state batteries. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I know that you can. It takes less to charge, and it can power things for a very long time. So that's probably
Huh.
yeah. Uh, those are that's pretty. It's pretty important because it can hold an electrical charge, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
And
interesting.
as we've talked about, Elon Musk, batteries are quite important.
Yes.
And we have things, they have screens,
Yeah.
but there's also that other side of it, right? Which is that we are most of the way through the silicon age, aren't we? And silicon chips can't really get that much smaller, but
No.
graphene chips
Yeah.
can get much, much smaller, can't they? So I
Yes.
love to talk to people about miniaturization of
Yeah.
chips. And, one day it might be that the collar of your polo shirt, that polo shirt that you wear all the time, the pink one with the Ralph Lauren on it?
Hey.
Maybe I'm winding you up. But maybe there's a time when your polo shirt will detect that your body's getting a bit cold, and it will close the fibers up on your shirt, keep you warm.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Wearables.
That is pretty cool. Yeah. I was thinking we I was thinking about this the other day actually. Whatever happened to hydrogen cars? They
Well,
disappeared.
they didn't blow up. Ha
No,
ha.
they didn't. But I was saying I really like the idea of hydrogen cars. I just couldn't get away from the explodey part
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I don't know if having a hydrogen car on a motorway is the safest option, but
Yeah.
if you
Feels a
can
little bit
manage
like
it,
having a lion as a pet, right?
yeah,
Awesome
yeah,
until it gets hungry and decides that you are lunch.
yes, yes. So that was one because hydrogen fuel it was supposed to be really good. So I'd like to speak to somebody on that. And have you heard of these biohackers?
Yes.
Biohackers,
Yeah.
yes, that is super cool. I watched a TED talk,
Yeah.
so I'm not an expert. However, we can get an expert.
You're a TED spurt.
Yeah, I'm a TED expert. So yeah, we can get somebody to talk about that. Actually, that would be
Yeah,
really
totally.
interesting.
Things like gut health and cholesterol, and how there's
Yeah,
3 kinds of cholesterol, and get your cholesterol down to 0 means you die, and
yeah,
therefore maybe it's not such a good
yeah. It's
idea.
not.
And the fat versus sugar thing, and why high fat, low sugar is better than low fat, high sugar, and that sort of
Yes.
stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, totally into
Yeah.
that. And
Oh,
I'm
and
also
oh,
go on.
there was like there was another TED talk. I know. Is regards to hacking sort of like ecosystem. It was a strange one. So it was like they wanted to reduce malaria. So what was the best way of doing it? And one method was they realized that malaria or one of the viruses was spread by a particular um, type of mosquito, and then it was only exclusively the female mosquitoes. So a way of infecting less people was to target those mosquitoes that are infected and get rid of them. So that was quite interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was quite interesting because it is like thinking outside of the box rather than just thinking of a cure for the virus. You can just stop it from reaching humans in
Yeah.
populated areas and stuff. Yeah, so
Yeah. Which,
interesting.
when you think about it, is kind of what lockdown is, right?
Yes, yeah,
Lock down a population, stop them going outside and mingling, and the virus can't spread. The virus can't spread; it dies out.
yeah, yeah.
And
That's
it's worked with limited effect, limited effect
Yeah,
so
I
far.
mean,
But
I think, yeah, I think we all knew that that the lockdown with COVID was a bit weird because any other virus, I believe it would have worked like completely, but COVID is weird because animals can contract it too. So it's kind of
yeah,
like if your cat could probably hold it for a while, sneeze
you
on you
got to
and you get
watch
it
the
again.
cat.
You
You
gotta
think
watch the
it's there to
cats.
love you and look after you and wait to be fed, but really, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
vector.
I'm telling you, you can't hear them sneak up on you.
I can see the T-shirt, feline vector.
Feline.
Yeah,
I
but on
like
that
that.
topic, I really want to hear about ways in which people are building community and fixing the decayed social systems that we see
Yeah.
around us. Like for Brighton, for example, I've heard in the last few days that some folks say, I don't go into Brighton anymore because the centre of town is full of people who have substance abuse problems or what do they call it? Rough sleeping. That's a new way of talking about homelessness, right?
Yeah, yeah, rough
People
sleep.
that and it does look rough, so I think that's actually quite fair. But it also, I think homeless is a better name for it
Yeah,
because in my view, everyone deserves a home,
yeah,
right?
it's a less
And
PC name, and it's exactly what it is. I don't like the rough sleepers. Oh, because if you've never heard, if somebody came up to you and said, "Oh, there's a rough sleeper and there's a homeless person," which one would you think would be the worst?
yeah, one of them sounds rough, right?
Yeah, one of
Totally.
them sounds rough, but the other one is actually has no home. So it's
Yep.
kind of
And
for
and
yeah.
and we could help them get a home, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really interested to talk to people about those sorts of ideas. You know, the living wage and. And also extending that idea of helping people to help themselves. There's the concept of the big issue, the magazines that homeless people could sell, and they
Oh
they
yeah.
keep half the profit, right?
Yeah.
Awesome, what a great idea. But you could take that the next step, and the whole give someone $15 and a mobile phone, and they'll dig themselves out of a hole using entrepreneurial spirit. That kind of that new approach to NGOs in places like sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think that's a yeah, that's really interesting. I think when it comes to the entrepreneurship, that's a good topic with trying to tackle homelessness and things like that. It'll be interesting to actually get a politician on as well, actually, to see what they think and what our current leaders or the leaders of the community think about tackling these problems and how they tackle it. Because there's two sides of the coin, right? There's the I don't want to say establishment because that sounds like I'm some sort of anarchist or something, but that you have the government and then you have sort of the charities, right? And
Mm,
only up until recently in the UK, they've been on these sort of separate paths, right? Where you've got food
yeah.
banks, and then you've got the government saying you don't need food banks, and then the food banks are like, well, we don't have enough food now because we're giving it all out. You know what I mean? So it'll
So
be
there are
really,
people who need food banks.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know what I mean? Yeah. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see about how we can actually repair this sort of this broken social um, you know environment.
Fabric.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fabric
yeah,
in
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
COVID as a moment to sort of take stock and then decide how we'd like to change the way that we do things as societies, right? I think
yeah,
that's really exciting, and
yeah,
we're going to see some really interesting projects, right?
yeah. We're going to see really interesting projects. We're going to see some really interesting innovations as well, because not just in the technological sense, but in the community sense, because there's things
Yeah,
you can't do as you previously did, right?
yeah. Oh,
So
yeah, absolutely.
like going to the park, for example. Like, how are we going to deal with how do people tend to deal with that if you've got climbing frames? Because up until recently, I know a number of councils just put like gates around things, so it's kind of like
Mm.
okay, exercise more, but this outdoor gym is not able to be accessed at the moment. So
This
okay,
is not for you.
yeah, you know what I
Yeah,
mean. So yeah, it's
yeah.
yeah,
It's
this
very
is a
clear, isn't it, that everybody's just trying to work out how to handle it. So it'll be even interesting to talk to people from local council and and talk to them about how they're adjusting their services, right, in this new world, the new
yeah.
normal.
Yeah, I mean, one person or would be which would be really good to speak to would be a historian. How do
Ah, yeah.
how did societies repair themselves after major sort of these sort of not a plague, but if you know what I mean, these
These
huge
events. Yeah,
these pandemics and epidemics because I know we had the Black Plague. There was the Spanish flu. Um, leprosy was the oldest one, I believe. One of the oldest.
yeah.
I remember the those old movies where people were like unclean, unclean, that kind of
But
stuff. So,
even more recently, right? Like the Che Guevara movie,
oh
he was working in a leprosy camp, wasn't he, in
yeah,
Argentina? So yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So you're right. You're right.
yeah,
Leprosy was totally a thing. Polio was
yeah,
a thing.
yes,
And for me, somehow this seems quite familiar. And the reason
mm.
for that is that my grandparents, my whole life, have talked about what it was like during the war and after the war, being World War
Ah,
II.
yeah,
And there was a big shift. We had a baby boomer bubble, didn't we? When
yes,
everybody realized that they were going to make it, and
yeah,
they got reunited.
yes,
And most of the buildings that I've lived in New Zealand were built after that time, right?
oh
So
yeah,
you know the world really changed just after
yeah.
that war. So I wonder if there's some parallels, right?
Yeah, I think there is. I think my parents were born in the 50s, I think, in the 50s. So their parents were, around with the World War II and military stuff. So what was really interesting is I think my mum's been through a few things, obviously. Being born in the
One of them
50s,
bringing you up.
yeah, bringing me up, huge,
She's obviously a patient
yeah,
woman.
traumatizing experience. So what's interesting that she went back into not survival mode, but like literally we're now growing pumpkins,
Oh,
and
wow. Subsistence
courgettes,
mode.
yeah, courgettes, tomatoes, and all these other things in the garden now. So she fully switched on. So she's like, yeah, we're going back into. We haven't even eaten some of the stuff that we've sort of harvested. So it's just sitting there. So she's probably planning like, if lockdown 2 comes, we're gonna be having pumpkin pie and
Oh,
and
that sounds
butternut
really
squash
good.
and all these things.
There's
So
nothing better than homegrown veggies, right?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, the
yeah,
taste. Oh,
yeah. It's good. It's good. A lot better than the store bought stuff.
totally.
A
And
lot.
I'm hoping we can talk to people in different countries as well, right? Because we live in the UK, but both of us have got roots that come from other countries, and
Yes.
we both work with and hang out with people from all sorts of places, right? So I think it's really interesting to share ideas of how people are solving things in different places.
Yeah. Yeah. Because although we see it as, I mean, it's global, obviously, but I think in different problems for different areas, right? So,
Sure.
yeah. So
And at different times, right?
yeah, because if you read up on sort of how Nigeria dealt with COVID, it's quite fascinating.
Go
And
on.
well, I don't have all of the facts off the top of my head, but I do
But I
know that
expect you to.
their impact. I'm not a problem buster. I'm joking. They're
Yeah, it's okay. You just keep working at it.
yeah, they weren't impacted as heavy as everybody thought. Funnily enough,
Huh.
and correct me if I'm wrong. I keep saying that, but that's my disclaimer. I believe they had a form of lockdown which was kind of similar to the regional one in the UK that we're doing, but they implemented it quite early. So
Okay.
and yeah, so it's a bit of an odd one there because they're dealing with it. They've got a huge population. I think it's like 2 to 300 million in Nigeria,
Yeah.
and America's performing worse. So I don't know what's going on. Um, yeah,
Interesting.
you would expect with all the resources that America has. I'm not saying that Nigeria doesn't have any resources, but I think,
Relatively,
yeah,
yeah.
if compared to relative, if you compare the resources that the US has compared to the UK as well, it's there's a ridiculous disparity there. Which means, and I've always said this, when you don't have as much as everyone else,
Punchline. I can
yeah,
feel it building.
when you don't have as much as everybody else, you do start to become a bit more ingenious and a bit more engineering oriented. If you look at Japan, Ireland, just like
Yeah.
the UK, both with a really strong engineering background and technology
Yeah.
background, and it's just based off necessity rather than
Yeah.
having the luxury of doing it. It's kind of like you know we if you're in Japan, you have to
We
find
had
new
to.
ways. Yeah, you have to find new
Yeah.
ways of
Yeah.
of, of
I mean, if
feeding
you were in
people and
Hiroshima
stuff. Yeah,
and you'd literally seen a city leveled by a hydrogen bomb,
mm,
um, I mean, you could say that's where companies like Toyota cars arose from those ashes, you know? And
yeah,
it's interesting because the Toyota Way or the Toyota Kata is what led to lean, which led to agile, which led to the way that we build all of our software services these
mm,
days.
mm,
And that all came from a city being leveled, a country being leveled, and them,
yeah,
like you say, having to find a way, right?
yeah, yeah. That's it. You just have to be a bit more, you know, innovative. Think outside the box. Hashtag
That's it.
problem busters.
Touche.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and we'll obviously have to spend a bit of time together. So I apologize to anybody that doesn't like listening to my voice because there's a bit more of that to come. But we're going to meet some interesting people, aren't we? So,
Yes,
yeah.
we are. And we're going to have some interesting conversations and have some in depth discussions on their solutions as well, which is going to be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. And it's really important to, as much as possible, bring things down to the level that relates to people's everyday lives, right? I
Yeah.
think that's really important to empower people to realize that we can all change the world around us in little ways and in big ways, right?
Yeah. I believe so. I think you see that every day when everybody starts recycling a bit more. We have a bit more material to go into renewable material to go into new products that come out. Um,
Yeah.
we see that in the iPhone. I think, well, not the iPhone, the new Apple Watch. They're
What's
using
that?
the new Apple Watch. It's a new thing that's come out in America across
But
the
what are
pond.
they doing? What are they
Um,
doing? Tell us what they're doing.
they're using recycled aluminium or aluminum, depending on where you're from.
And whether
Uh,
you want to sound like a superhero.
you know, and
Aluminum.
aluminum. There's recycled aluminum in your watches, so they're starting to use a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's
Because aluminium is incredibly bad for the environment to
yes,
produce, as I understand it. Doesn't
yes,
it have to get to like 30,000 degrees or 10,000 degrees or something?
yeah, something
It's
like that.
mad.
And it's
Mad bad.
yeah, it's yeah, mad bad, mad bad, mad bad. If you make
I'm
it, you're a
telling you,
bad
old
lad.
kids.
Yeah, it's crazy. But what the benefit of using the renewable one, the recycled stuff is one, it's lightweight for the watch as well. I mean, they'll compromise durability, but that's the cost you have to pay to save the planet. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Slam dunk.
yeah,
Yeah, totally. And there's lots of different ways that we can clean up our act, right? And help others. And it might just be, say, parents saying to a kid, "Yes, you can, Jonathan. You can be, you can
yeah.
have a Nobel Prize and win a World Cup."
Yeah, I'm like, oh wow, yeah. So there we go.
And that's important too, right? There's a lot of mindset change going on right now because we've all been fighting our internal battles locked away inside, haven't we?
Yeah,
Facing our demons and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah,
I think it's really interesting to hear how meditation concepts have evolved into things like mindfulness and
mm,
how that's kind of become non-denominational, and to in a way that just about anybody can now download something like Headspace or Calm, and they can sit and calm themselves down, right?
yeah,
Whereas previously there was all of this religious stuff or cultural stuff around meditation that meant that it was only suitable to certain people. So
yeah.
I'm really interested in how ideas get reshaped for a new group, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite interesting because um, you even see that back with even religion, right? Like um, the Catholic Church, a lot of the rituals are from like ancient Babylon, and they've just
Right.
been passed over and reshaped. It's quite interesting, and one of the most apparent versions as well is the Greek gods and the Roman gods, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Almost
it's
so like for
yeah,
like.
like for like. Also the was it like the Nordic gods like Zeus and that? Apparently they were all these concepts were all created around the same time, which to me is mind blowing.
I love that
Yeah,
stuff.
so
Like that idea of like a whole lot of people all discovering how to make pasta in a whole lot of different countries all
yeah,
at
in
the same
different all
time.
at the same
How
time.
does
We're
that
like, what? Yeah,
work?
how does that work? What's
It's
going
so
on here?
cool.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's really interesting. So that stuff is really cool.
The tipping point and 100th monkey type concepts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. All right. So there's no shortage of things to talk about. That's the long and the short of it, right?
Yes, yes. I think that means our podcast. That means this preview was 10 seconds long. So yeah.
I mean, we definitely kept it under the 1 minute. So,
yes, we did.
and why should people listen to this podcast, Jonathan? Sell it to me.
Oh, well, you should listen to this podcast because one, we have two very, very
Good looking.
Smooth
faces
voiced.
for radio.
Yeah, faces for radio. We've got smooth voices. I'm telling you. No, really, we'll have it's we will have really interesting guests with really interesting discussions, and us ourselves, we're problem solvers. We're really inquisitive, and it's just going to be an awesome ride.
Totally.
Yeah, I think
Basically, like a 5-day weekend, it's something that you just look forward to every time it comes around.
Yeah. Paris 5-day weekend.
Well, I mean, I'm being absolutely honest, right? I love a 5-day weekend. Like a small child in a candy shop. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited to see who we get for our first guest. That is going to be it's going to be good.
That's
no
the
pressure.
£30,000 question.
That is the 30,000.
Drum roll.
The only way you'll find out is if you click that follow button. You add us to your favorites.
You subscribe.
You subscribe, and you see that ping. Problem Busters.
And at 5-day weekend.
There we go.
Awesome.